What's up out there? Welcome to the channel and welcome to 2023. So I have a little bit of change that I want to make in my channel. And a little backstory for this is that when I started the Halloween horror movie marathon a couple of years ago, I started doing content for that. That's a 30-day marathon that I go through in October, watch a bunch of horror movies. And I started bringing that onto the channel because it takes time away from the other content that I generally do, which is gaming content. So I felt that was a good way of incorporating everything together so that I could keep going on the movies and keep making content for YouTube and not get behind on everything. But I don't think I've quite brought everything together the way it should be. So I had two options. Either I quit doing the marathon content altogether or somehow supplement things throughout the rest of the year. So in 2023, I want to start incorporating more film content throughout the year. Now, this could be top watches for the month because I watch a lot of movies. This could be top 10 lists of just top 10 action movies or something like that, or whatever. Could also be the occasional movie review. I haven't quite totally pinned all that down, but in 2023, I want to try and attempt to incorporate more film content throughout the year so that when I get to the Halloween horror movie marathon, and I'm going to change the way I do the marathon based on how I did things last year, based on how I've done things the last few years. I haven't been happy with it. I haven't really figured out how to change it. I have some ideas and I have some ways that I am not going to do certain things because making the videos are kind of tough. And if I don't have a whole lot to say, it's kind of hard to break everything down. So, and last year there was a few movies that I wanted to spend time on and I didn't get to. So with all that said, I am going to start off this year with my top 5 and bottom 5, worst 5 movies of 2022. So the first thing we're going to do, and keep in mind, these are my opinions. These are based on my taste, which you're going to probably think is pretty awful because a lot of people don't agree with a lot of the movies that I like. In fact, a lot of people have been turned off by a lot of the recommendations I make. So I have what we will call an eclectic taste. I watch everything from the very worst to the very best. And I think it helps you round out better as a film watcher. So let's talk about the worst 5 movies of 2022. Number 5 is going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was kind of not terribly excited about this one. And it turns out this was a very boring film. It was basically about Leatherface only. And like the whole Texas Chainsaw thing is about this really messed up family that's killing people and eating them. They're like cannibal family and stuff. And they just shoved all that out the door and just made a movie about Leatherface. And it wasn't a very good movie about Leatherface. So the fact that I'm mentioning it on this, even though it was boring and forgettable, it was memorable enough that when I saw it on what I saw during 2022, I was like, yeah, that was a pretty bad movie. So that's number 5. Number 4 is a movie called The Invitation. Now, this is what looks like, if you've seen Ready or Not, where the woman gets married and she goes to move in with her in-laws and all that, and then it's a big hunt and everything. That was a fantastic movie. I love that. This looked like the vampire version of that. You got some girl that comes over and meets some dude. Turns out this was more of a bad Twilight version of Ready or Not, and I really just did not like this. Bad dialogue, like it was Hallmark City all the way through. Didn't care for this one, couldn't wait for it to be over, and that's why it is number 4 on my list. Number 3, and this is where we start getting into the divisive part, probably, if we haven't already. Halloween Ends. I did not necessarily hate this movie. I didn't like it. I think it caps off a trilogy that was not needed, not cared for, and not asked for. And I didn't care for the way they handled the whole thing. It ended. It certainly ended. And I just didn't care for the way the whole trilogy played out. The first one, I felt mediocre about it. I still don't know if I loved or hated it. I've only watched that one once. And then Halloween Kills was, it had a lot of kills in it, but that was, whatever. It kind of, again, it was all been kind of mediocre. So when I saw this one, it just caps off a trilogy that was a waste of time and talent and really didn't do anything for the Halloween franchise. I typically go through the Halloween franchise every few years. These 3 movies will not be on that. I even like the Rob Zombie movies. They're not great, but I enjoy them. When I go through that, no, I'm out. Number 2 on my list is X. And here's another one. I don't understand the hype on this. It is a mediocre slasher at best, and people love this movie, and I can't get it. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me because there's so many better horror movies, so many better slasher movies out there. And I've not bothered with Pearl because I didn't care for this one all that much, so I skipped that. So number 2 is X. Not a fan. And my number one, and these are basically my gut feeling on how much I hated these films. Not that they're necessarily bad, not that they're necessarily poorly made or anything. I just didn't like these movies. They did nothing for whatever franchise they were part of, because a lot of these are franchise movies, and they just really didn't bring anything to the table. And that is embodied perfectly in the number one choice of the worst movie of 2022, and that was Hellraiser. This was an absolute waste of the franchise. Like parts 5 through 9 or 10 or whatever they're up to now, those are bad and you can just ignore them. This one tried to be good and tried to do things, but it just remade so much of the franchise, had characters that just were terrible. The characters were nothing to like. Like in some of the other movies, in parts 1 through 4 are the ones that I consider canon. And in those movies, you actually cared about the characters. In this movie, I didn't care about anybody. I wanted to see them all dead and gone and moved on. And they did things with the Cenobites that I just didn't like. I mean, the effects were kind of cool and all, but I don't know. That's why this one's on the worst. It was just a total letdown that I will never revisit. It's gone beyond, like I'm assuming that it's going to reboot and there's going to be follow-up entries to it. And I'm just going to check out of them because what they did with this one is totally offline from the original 4. The original 4 were much darker and much better quality story-wise and horror-wise, rather than just blood and guts, some nice special effects and move on. Like the original 4 actually had a story and an overarching thing that you see throughout. I know certain parts deviate a little bit throughout 1 through 4, but overall, I loved the thing. And this is just not rebooting that very well at all. So Hellraiser, Halloween Ends, and Texas Chainsaw just had some horrible entries. But let's go into the honorable mentions. I had a lot of movies that I really liked, and I didn't get a chance to really talk about these at all. Or I can't put these in the list. Let's say that. Not that I can't talk about them. We're going to talk about them right now. But I can't necessarily put these on the top 5. So we're going to quickly go through these. Terrifier 2, loved the first one. Second one was on par with the first one, but it didn't do anything to really elevate that from where the first one was. Cool movie, good effects for the price and everything, for how much they spent on it, but not enough to overtake the first one. Violent Night and Bullet Train. These are 2 amazingly solid action movies that I strongly recommend. Violent Night for Christmas time, but Bullet Train was awesome. Loved it. There's a movie called Deadstream out on Shudder. I think you can get it from other streaming services, rent it or whatever, but this is a found footage movie about a guy that goes to stay he's like a live streamer, and he goes to stay in a haunted house overnight. And that's like his whole goal, is to lock himself in and stay in. Well done, super low budget, but very well done. I was amazed by this movie. It's very spooky, very creepy, very well made. Loved it. And then, I had some franchises in the bottom 5, but now we're going to start talking about a franchise that really did well, and that's Scream. Part 1, I'm not the biggest Scream fan. I'm not the biggest Wes Craven fan either. I'm more of a Carpenter fan myself, but I can recognize that Scream was definitely a trendsetter. It definitely started a movement within horror movies and everything. And Scream 2, 3, and 4, I think it was, they're all kind of not that great. But this new Scream that came out last year was awesome. I loved it. I think it revitalized that franchise, and I think it did a good job of setting it in a new direction. So I loved that. That was a great entry into that franchise. And the final honorable mention that I have is Nope. This is one of the ones that I really wanted to talk about when I was doing the Halloween horror movie marathon. I should have taken the time to just make a video about Nope itself when I watched it, because I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic movie. It's really inventive sci-fi horror. It just had some loose ends on it. Like the little monkey thing just kind of goes nowhere, and you're kind of left blue-balled on that whole topic. Like I was interested and invested in it, and then they never came back to it again. And same thing with the Glenn guy, the guy that plays Glenn in The Walking Dead. He's in this movie, and his path kind of just stops at that point too. And there was like no good conclusion to it. It just stops. So that's why Nope is an honorable mention as opposed to in the top 5. So Let's jump into the top 5 real quick. Number 5, this is a tie, and I'm going to preface this with not all movies have to be 10 of 10 masterpiece, the greatest movie of all time ever made, that kind of thing. Sometimes just dumb fun with popcorn on a couch is all you need. And these two movies made it on this list. I know there's better movies in the honorable mentions. I get that. But these movies made it into the top 5 because they were so entertaining. They were so fun. And I really enjoyed them a lot more than other people say I should, and that I probably should. That is Moonfall and Maneater. Moonfall is a big disaster movie about some aliens that are shoving the moon into Earth. It's actually a lot more fun. Like, check your brain at the door. There's a lot of stupidity in it, and there's a few times I went, hey, wait a minute, and then I thought, you know what? Don't think about it, just enjoy it. Maneater is this same thing. It's about a killer shark, and I thought the cast was really good. I had a lot of fun watching both of these movies. They are horribly bad B movies. They're not unwatchable. They're just not great. You know what I mean? But I really enjoyed them, and that's why they're at number 5. That's why they're tied. I couldn't decide which one to put, so I just put them both. At number 4, the movie Smile. When I saw the trailer for this, I was like, I really want to see that. I really wanted to see that movie badly. This is one of the ones, this and Barbarian and The Menu and stuff like that. These were some of the horror movies that I was really looking forward to badly. And this one turned out to be just exactly what it needed to be. It wasn't the greatest ending to it, but overall the movie was very creepy, was very grisly at times. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of The Ring and stuff like that. And there was another one that it reminded me of too. But this movie really did a good, solid job of delivering what I saw in the trailer. And the trailer only kind of spoiled the first 10 or 15, 30 minutes of it. It didn't really spoil anything into it. So you can go into the trailer and get excited about it and enjoy the movie that you see, which was fantastic because it didn't spoil everything ahead of time. At number 3 on my list is a movie I just watched yesterday, and that is The Menu. This is another one I was super stoked to see. In fact, this is probably one of my most anticipated movie. And this one really nailed the landing. This one stuck it good. The whole movie was fantastic. Very beautiful to look at. Like, the cinematography was very well done. The beach shots, the shots of the food, the way they did the split scenes between, they would announce a plate of food that they're going to get, and then they would have a thing on the screen like they do on, some of your bigger foodie type shows. Here's the plate, and then they show all the ingredients and everything on it. Very well done movie, very well cast. I loved this. This one could be anywhere on the list, but I do have a couple more that are better. So up to number 2, which is The Batman. Pattinson Batman is not the greatest Batman. He's not the worst Batman. He's kind of in the middle. I didn't necessarily care for him as much as I did the Nolan Batman. But I loved this version of Gotham. And I think that's something that's echoed in a lot of reviews for this movie. The cast in here and all of the cast, it didn't, in your normal Batman movies, it feels like Batman is like the main character. And I know it's a Batman movie and he's the main character. I know that sounds stupid, but in this movie, he wasn't necessarily the main character. He wasn't the best character. He just kind of blended in with the rest of it. And it became a story about Gotham itself and all the villains and heroes that are in Gotham, rather than just focusing in on Batman and that's the only thing that you see. So you get a lot of variety in the way that the movie is presented. It looked fantastic. It had a great cast. I want more of this. When this finished, and this was kind of a long movie, I love the movie Seven, and this gets compared to the movie Seven quite a bit. So blending those two together and bringing back the dark cartoon version of Batman was awesome. And I loved it. And I definitely want more from this franchise, a lot more, because this was good. I love the Nolan Batmans, but this whole, what this could be going down the road was phenomenal, and I want more. So that's my number 2 entry. And number 1 is going to be probably not a shock to very many people out there. That is Top Gun Maverick. If you looked at some of my bottom 5 or the worst 5, they were franchises that just really didn't deliver very much into keeping anything new. They just brought old crap back or did a poor job of remaking things. With Top Gun Maverick, you kind of get the same story as the original movie, but they made it so much better, and I can't really explain how, but it's just very well done. I like the first Top Gun. It's a movie that I saw back in the theaters when I was a kid. It's a movie I've loved over the years. I've watched it, I don't know, 3, 4 times. Like, it's not my all-time favorite movie of ever, but I've watched it enough and I enjoy it. I like it a lot. This one just takes that and made this was like insanely good for what it is. For being this far down the road, like they could have taken so many different directions with it. And while it is sort of a rehash of the first movie, I think it takes enough elements to keep things familiar, but then brings enough new stuff to the table and does things enough differently that it justifies itself. Not only justifies itself, but just I want to go back and watch this again. And I think I would rather watch this than the original one any day. I'll probably watch them both at some point, but this one was just such a good movie. So that is my worst 5 and top 5 movies for 2023. We will be back sometime, I don't know when, but we'll be back with some more movie content in the near future. Take care.